Okay, so today's class I really wanted to call Closing the Past and Opening into Possibility. And we're going to be working with a particular reflex today, which is what I call the second epidemic that we have going on. So we've got all of this challenge that we're facing, and then we have our reaction to it. And when Summer said what the most important thing we can do is to remain calm, it really is that ability to experience all of the flux of what's happening, feel it, but then not get stuck in it. Because when we get stuck in that reflex, what I'm going to call, it's called several things. There's the in somatic terms, the red light reflex. It's this reflex that we have to kind of cringe and pull in toward our center. And it's a hardwired reflex. We're not going to get rid of it. It's an intelligent reflex. It's there for our survival. And it's been there ever since human beings, mammals, came onto the planet. It's like if you took a stick and poked a sea anemone, it would just pull in to protect its vulnerable center. So it tends to be associated with events, stimulus, external stimulus that feels threatening, anxiety producing. It's characterized by fear, worry. Anything that feels threatening to us as human beings will cause us to go into this cringe response as just a natural form of withdrawal from something that feels overwhelming or threatening. So again, the idea is it's not bad. We're not trying to get rid of it, but we don't want to live there, because living in it creates a cascade of corrosive health and effects on our well-being that tend to wear us down. So in whatever way we do this, we need to find ways to return to home. And home is that place of feeling calm, that place of neutrality, that place where we can go, oh, okay, I just had a moment of fear. Okay, got it, feel it, sense it, be with it. And then it's like, how can I move through that? And somatics is great for that, because it actually helps the body to feel how it can move in and then move out. And it doesn't have to hold these tension patterns in the body. So I just want to show you a couple pictures of what that looks like when it gets habituated. We used to think of it as the old age reflex, but it's now no longer just about old age. So this is sort of that hunched forward, pulled forward, the head goes forward, the large abdominal muscles contract that tend to pull the head forward. But it's also, as I said, it's associated with grief, with events that are tragic, sad, painful. It's just to recognize that as human beings, we tend to have this protective response to when we feel overwhelmed or feel like there's just so much happening that we can't really take it all in. Again, it's a very natural reflex, and it's becoming habituated through our use of devices. So it's now no longer just the older generation, but our use of computers and cell phones tend to put us in that position and help it to become more of a habitual pattern in our body. So when we talk about this reflex, and when I say closing the past, what I hope to do today is really sort of help on an experiential level for us to release anything that we've carried over from last year that is in our body, maybe unconsciously being, and I'll tell you the primary key areas that this reflex tends to trigger. When you hear a loud noise, let's say a car just backfired, you immediately, without you even thinking about it, and that's why it's called a reflex, it's not conscious, the first thing that happens is your eyes close. So your eyes protect, the vulnerable eyes in case there's like an explosion. So your eyes contract, your jaw contracts. So there's a clenching of the jaw. The shoulders raise, and this large rectus abdominal muscle in the front of the body actually contracts as if someone had just hit you in the stomach. So it's contracting the most vulnerable organs, which are all in the abdominal area. The knees tend to go inward. So I'll show you on my little guy here. The knees tend to point inward. Again, all the flexors of the body, the shoulders round forward, everything, you can kind of see how everything's getting pulled in toward the center. So that's the reflex. It tends to produce on a long-term basis TMJ problems, jaw problems, shoulder problems that also relate to the neck, because these trapezius muscles tend to be in a continually shortened, contracted position. It tends to bring on asthma, because when we cringe forward, we don't have enough space in the diaphragm to get a full breath. Also, brain fog, unclear thinking. We can't quite think clearly because all the blood gets pulled out of our brain, pulled out of our digestive areas, out of our internal organs, goes to our legs. Someone's writing me something. Okay. And everyone's hearing me? Give me a thumbs up if the volume's good. Okay. Someone else is having trouble with Zoom. So sleep disturbances, because we're in this cascade of hormones, mostly adrenaline, cortisol, norepinephrine, that are flooding our system, causing us to be in a state of fight or flight. Also, the extreme version is freeze, where we actually just collapse into a freeze. So asthma, breathing problems, sleep disturbances, compromised immune system, and autoimmune disease are all the things that are become associated with this reflex when it's habituated over time. So that's a little background. And now I want to just kind of, having given you the overview, go into the experiential so that we can really feel this, we can really recognize it in our own body, and then we can really have the experience of what it's like to move through and out of this, so that you have the tools to be able to know when you're going into it, when you really feel your body going into cringe. It's like, okay, I know how to neutralize that in the body, because neutralizing it in the body then begins to shift the emotional and energetic response that we're having, the reactionary response. So get comfortable. The movement patterns that we're going to be exploring today are the ones that are most commonly involved in the startle reflex. And the exploration is going to be about opening into the exploration of what's possible. So rather than repeating what we've been habitually repeating from last year, we're going to learn to let that go and begin to move into what's possible. So you can lie down and get comfortable, settling into a position where you feel supported. You're welcome to have your cameras off or your cameras on. If you have your cameras on, you can angle them so that I can see some of you, just to make sure the guidance is getting through. And if at any time you need to check, Bruce will be in the background modeling the movements for you. All right, so just taking this moment to come back to yourself. And thanking yourself for being here. Thanking yourself for making this commitment to yourself, to really give yourself this time to come into connection with yourself and the others present here, into this field of somatic exploration. And as you begin to tune into your own center, feeling the breath coming and going through your center. As if there was a clear channel right through the center of your body, allowing the movement of breath to move in and out through that channel. And as you begin to simply rest, just take a load off. Sensing the ground beneath you. Supporting you. And letting go into that support. We all carry around a heavy backpack filled with our past. It holds the weight of our memories, emotions, beliefs, ideas, and concepts about ourselves. Everything we've accumulated over a lifetime. And this weight can become heavier and heavier over time. We could call it the backpack of my past. And sometimes with this backpack of our past, we live in the land of limitation. So as you begin to sense your whole body, attuning and giving your body the gift of your own presence. Just see if there's anything that you're carrying, any kind of a weight, like a backpack. Anything that feels like worries, concerns, heavy, anxious feelings, fears. And just for now, give yourself the gift, give yourself permission to take off the backpack and put it aside. It'll be there if you need it later, but just for now, for this next hour. And as you do, you might feel your body thank you as you remove this heavy weight. Just allowing the breath to come in and out through your nose. Letting the rhythm of the breath be pleasurable and easy. Allowing the eyes to soften. Just letting your gaze relax out of the narrow focus into a wider focus. It's as if you could sense what's on either side, what's in behind you. It's like opening up your angle of your camera to a wide angle lens and just taking in, without seeing it, just taking in this space. Allowing your jaw to unhinge. Your jaw slightly open. And slowing the breath down. Allow your shoulders to drop. And if there's anything that's still in the body that feels old, that feels tense, you can just imagine taking it energetically, gathering it up and placing it in the backpack that's next to you. Just to give yourself this next hour to feel what it feels like to be a little lighter. As you breathe in your next breath, breathe in the word letting. And as you breathe out the word go. Without even trying, just giving the body permission to soften and let go. Perhaps really letting go of last year. Perhaps letting go of something, anything that's no longer serving you. It's no longer supporting you in your life. Sensing the body relaxing. Breathing in, letting. And breathing out, go. Perhaps as the body lets go, there's this sense of it becoming heavier, sinking deeper, and yet becoming lighter at the same time. Letting go. The movement of thought is in the background, but it's becoming more distant, sort of percolating away, but your awareness is here now with your body. Breathing in the word letting and breathing out the word go. And maybe it's just 2%. Maybe it's just a little bit of feeling of, yeah, I'm ready to let that go. So now we're going to begin to release even more through somatic movement. So I invite you to bend your knees. So you're standing on your feet. And just bring your awareness into your pelvis and feeling just the contact that your pelvis is making on the floor. Becoming a little curious about, is there any more weight on one side of the pelvis than the other? And then in a very gentle way, just to kind of let the pelvis settle a little more, can you begin to rock very gently, side to side, letting the pelvis just sort of settle out. By rocking, I just mean you tilt a little to one side. I mean, it's a micro movement of just playing with a bit of a wiggling or tipping motion of the pelvis, just inviting it to sort of feel what it feels like to really just settle into the floor. And then let it just come back to neutral. Now, I'm going to invite you to use your feet and your feet's relationship to the earth to begin to slowly, what I call peel. Peeling is different than if you were to detach your whole pelvis away from the floor, it would be like a whole spaceship. It lifts up all at the same time. But to peel your pelvis, starting at your tailbone, it's like a piece of tape. First, you start with the tailbone, and then you start to move up to the sacrum, and then you just go a little bit higher until you're right at the lower back area, just that far. And then as you unpeel, you're going to segmentally lower each one of those segments as if you could visualize a railroad track and you're going right down the center of the railroad track. It's as if there was a string line right through the center of the railroad track. So you've got the track, which is on two sides. You've got a left side and a right side, but now we're focusing on just what it feels like to peel and unpeel down the center line. So it's kind of a small movement. And as you just begin to feel your own body's response to the center line, notice if there's any deviation. Maybe your body has a bit of a preference to kind of pull, kind of like a shopping cart at Costco where the wheels are a little misaligned, so they're pulling a little more to the right or to the left. Just notice if that's true for you. We're going to actually explore that in a minute, but just get acquainted with your own body's sense of its center line. So you're still keeping it a small bridge, but you can go up a little bit higher, not to your fullest range, but just exploring what it's like to purposely find your center line, and as if you could drop each spinal segment down one at a time, just right back down to the tailbone. And now the next time, I want you to unpeel or peel your spine away from the floor. So you're in this lifted position. And then on purpose, deviate and lower on the right side of the railroad track. So you're highlighting the right side just to feel what it's like to really go off track. So doing that a couple times, you're just exploring what it's like to really go off to one side and highlight the right side. And then go ahead and explore. If you unpeel or peel your spine away from the floor, coming up into a small bridge, what's it like to go down the left side of the railroad track? And can you still control the segments one at a time? See what it's like to begin to explore the left side. Because in fact, our spine has a center where the vertebrae have a midline, but then we also have these two tracks on either side. So after you've explored the right side, the left side, go back to doing one down the center line and see if it's any clearer for you in your own experience to find the midline, having purposely gone off course to one side and then the other. Sometimes we learn by contrast. So we can really exaggerate going off course, and then we know with more clarity where the center is. So now to take this into a bit of a challenge, this time, interlace your hands, lift your left foot off the floor and interlace your hands behind your left knee. And just notice how you interlaced your hands behind your left knee. And now uninterlace them and do it a different way, a non-habitual way, with a different finger on top than the way you automatically did it. So you're behind your knee, you're holding the crease, the back of the knee, your fingers are interlaced in the non-habitual way, a new way, which might feel strange. And now this time, it's a bit more challenging because we're a little more asymmetrical. Lift into a small bridge again. And segmentally lower your spine, one segment at a time. And just explore how you are able to negotiate keeping on your center with a little bit of challenge. It's like, oh, all of a sudden, it's like I'm not so symmetrical. I'm holding on to my left knee, but I still have to know where my center line is. It's the way we can stay grounded in our center, even though there's challenges that are happening in other areas. And then go ahead and interlace your hands the non-habitual way and put them behind your right knee. And go ahead and lift into a small bridge. And the bridge can be, as long as you're going slowly, you can really listening to your body. You can go as high as it feels enjoyable to go. So again, I should always remember to say that if there's anything that I guide you into doing today that doesn't feel appropriate for you, then please just make the best choice available for you in the moment. You can make the movement smaller, or you can just let it go completely. You really are responsible for honoring your own body's need in this moment. So you're exploring the lifting of the pelvis, you're holding on to the knee, and then just feeling very slowly how to drop down the center line. And notice if you're still breathing as you do this. And then let your right foot come back to touching the floor, keeping your hands interlaced in that non-habitual way. Your feet are both on the floor now. This time, put your hands behind your head with your elbows pointing up toward the ceiling. So we've worked with the lower half of the spine. We're going to work with the upper half of the spine now. Elbows pointing up toward the ceiling, so they're close in together somewhat. Can you begin to first tuck your chin and then gradually lift each part of your spine away from the floor, starting from your neck down into your mid-spine, just coming up as high as you'd like. And then slowly, gradually, and there's a nice nuance here. If you keep your chin a little bit tucked and use your hand as almost like a bit of a tractioning, as if you're lengthening the back of your head, kind of giving it a little bit as if you were pulling your hair, but you're just sort of guiding your neck into length, you'll feel this beautiful opening in that mid back area, which tends to get so stuck. So the exploration is to lift the head and then find the center line as you lower right back down to the floor again. And feel, there's always that question I love, what happens if? What happens if I kind of keep my chin tucked, you can play with these movements in different nuances so that they really serve and nourish your body. So don't be afraid to step out of the bounds of what I'm guiding you in order for your own body to have its most nourishing experience. Because you may get into a movement and you go, oh, it just feels so good if I did a little of this. That's your body's impulse, and that's important to follow. Okay, so now we're going to put the two together. So go ahead and one more time, lift your head, beginning to pull into this kind of half fetal position where your elbows are coming closer to your chest, your head's lifted, and then segmentally lowering down the midline. And as you're lowering your upper body, begin to then lift the lower body. So it's like a seesaw. The upper body's lowering and the lower body's lifting. And then right down the center line, lowering the lower body and lifting the upper body. So when the head's going up, the pelvis is going down. When the pelvis is going up, the head's going down. And it's almost like you're rocking over your spine. And it's a beautiful way to lengthen out the entire spine and really define that middle line. Allowing your body to play with any nuances or suggestions that come from your own body's impulse. The intelligence of the body will begin to express itself and guide you exactly into what you need. Okay, and then gradually completing what you're doing, taking a moment to just rest. With your arms and legs straight. And just becoming aware of the imprint that your body has on the floor. Sensing your emotional being right now, your mental state. And notice if anything became surfaced, because as we go through these movements, certain tension patterns and maybe even emotional patterns will begin to surface. If there's anything you want to take out of the body and put in the backpack of the past, in order to feel a further lightening, a further sense of ease in the body, feel free to take a moment to energetically gather whatever the body's wanting to release now at this level and put it in your backpack. And now bend your knees again and see if you can get a visual or at least a kinesthetic felt sense of the whole shape of your pelvis on the floor. It's actually, we call it the pelvis, but it's actually two halves. There's a hemipelvis on one side, a hemipelvis, which means half on the other side, and then there's a sacrum in the middle. So in fact, it's a bit heart-shaped. So what we're going to do is imagine now gently rolling around the rim of the pelvis, as if it was sort of a heart-shaped saucer. And just see if you can begin to discover, as if you were just rolling around the rim of a heart-shaped saucer. The tip of the heart is down towards your tailbone, and then you've got the two hemipelvises. And so the two curves meet where the sacrum is. And if that visual doesn't make sense to you, then just roll around a circle. And see how smooth and free you can make that movement. And then see if you can then start at the top of the heart, or the top edge, which would be just above the sacrum. So the bottom will be down toward the tailbone. The top is more toward the sacrum. We're going to define the hemi or half pelvises now. So again, we've been talking about the center line. See if you can just move right down the center line of your sacrum to your tailbone. And then when you get to the end, at the tip, go up the left side, curving up and around the left till you get back to your starting point. So if you took the shape of a heart and divided it in half, you would just be drawing with your body half of the shape of a heart. Down the center, sacrum to tailbone, up the left side, and around back to the center again. And go slow, because this is really exploring the sacroiliac joint, all the small, tiny muscles that help to stabilize the sacrum, deep connections in here. And notice how perhaps each time it gets, if there's any sticky points, if you go slow and really invite your body to move into those sticky areas, as long as it's not painful, you're actually reclaiming perhaps some very small intrinsic movements. And now the next time you're at your starting point, back up at the top, go down the center line to the tailbone, and then circle around up the right side of the hemipelvis. So it's like you're drawing the other half of the heart down the center, up and around, and over to your start point. Okay, now we're going to put the two halves together. So go back to the top. What I'm calling top is the very, not at the tailbone, but at the base of the spine and the sacrum. See if you can visualize the heart, or if you prefer, you can see like a figure eight or an infinity sign. A figure eight would be turned on its side, so it's flipped to its side, or the heart shape is also good. Come right down the center of the heart to the tailbone, come up and around the left side, go down the center of the heart and up and around the right side. So you're filling in both of those two halves of the heart, or if you prefer the shape of an infinity sign, two loops. And this is easy, gentle, really going for that smooth, gliding motion. And once you're right back in the center, then just let all of that go and straighten your legs for a moment and just notice what you feel. Maybe there's some warmth or some heat or some tingling. What's your awareness more aware of now? Now I'm going to invite you to bend your left knee and stand just on your left foot. And if you were to take your left foot and maybe turn the toes a little in. Remember, I told you as part of this reflex, the toes turn a little in, but start to slide the foot away from the midline. So as the toes turn in, and I'm talking about the left side right now. So we're just working with the left side. So as the toes actually point inward, start to slide the foot away from the center line so that your left knee can drop in toward the midline. So it's a sliding motion of your foot away from the center line. And as that happens, the knee responds by moving in. And then rather than coming back with just the knee, slide the foot back in toward the center line again. So it's an active movement of the foot moving away from the center line, which invites the knee to drop inward. By in is always in toward the body, center of the body. And then sliding the foot back out to its center position to bring the knee back to vertical. So when you're doing this, you're opening the sacroiliac joint on the left. Now let's see if we can do the opposite of that. So this time you're going to start to turn your toes a little out and then slide the foot in toward the midline so that the knee on the left can open out like a frog leg. And then again, initiating the foot moving back to center to bring your knee back up. So the foot is sliding in order to help the knee and the hip move. So now you're closing the sacroiliac joint. So let that rest for a moment. We're going to do the right side. So bend the right knee. So it helps to guide the body by giving it a little bit of toe pointing inward. And then sliding the foot away from the midline so the knee can drop in. As the knee drops in, see how much of your pelvis, your hemi-pelvis on the right, can begin to participate. So we're working with foot, knee, hip, pelvis, how it all relates. You might even find that the pelvis lifts away from the floor as the knee drops in, using your own pleasure and comfort as a guide. Some people's knees don't want to bend too much inward. So please be mindful of what your knee feels okay with. Maybe it's just a little bit. And then the opposite movement of this is going to be sliding the foot in toward the midline and opening the knee out. And notice what the pelvis does here. Does it tip more to the right? Does it lift? Okay, now we're going to put all this together, both sides. So straighten both your legs. So this time we'll start with both feet coming in toward the midline and knees opening out, like two frog legs, knees opening out to the side. And just feel, how does your back respond? You can help your back to arch by breathing into your belly. And then as you exhale, straightening the legs back out. This time turning both toes in, knees in, feet sliding away from the midline so the knees come a little together, like knock-kneed. And then sliding your legs back to straight. Again, feeling what your own body is inviting you into here. It's like how much is okay, how much is safe, how much is pleasurable for you. Okay, and complete the one that you're on. All right, can I invite you now to, let's go to the right shoulder for a minute. So if you were to take So we're working with the front of the shoulder, the pectoral muscles, everything that pulls our shoulder in toward the chest area. If you were to take your right arm and just roll it as if you were rolling it toward the thumb side of your hand, the arm is straight, so there's no bend in the elbow, and the arm's at your side. It's like a rolling pin, and you're just rolling the arm toward the thumb side of the hand until you feel the chest start to tighten on the right and the shoulder lift. Just sensing that small movement. And then let it return back to the floor. So once again, you're lifting your right shoulder and you're kind of rolling the arm toward the thumb side of the hand, sensing that tightening in the front of the chest, helping the shoulder to lift. And you might notice which way your head feels naturally invited to go. Is it toward the lifting shoulder or away from it? Either way is fine. Okay, now we're going to put this together with what we just did. As you lift your right shoulder, think of how your left hip might also begin to lift. By doing that movement of moving your foot on the left away from the midline and bending the left knee. So you're going into that pattern of your left knee bending to lift your hip while your right shoulder is lifting. And then slide the leg back to straight. So this is a little intricate, this pattern. So stay with it. You'll get it. The shoulder begins to lift, the tightening in the front of the right shoulder. You're sliding your left foot out, bending the knee as if you're bringing the knee in toward the midline and feeling right across the diagonal front of your body. There's a relationship here between your right shoulder and your left hip through the abdominal muscles. So we'll do this one more time on this side, rolling the right shoulder forward, the left knee bending, the left hip lifting, the foot sliding away from the center, feeling that contraction in the center of the body, and then the lengthening out as the leg straightens back and the arm lowers. Now let's stay with the same side and do the opposite pattern. So this time, take your right shoulder and instead of lifting it away from the floor, can you roll the arm so the palm is facing up toward the ceiling? And see if you can kind of tuck your shoulder blade down your back a little bit, as if you were trying to put it in your back hip pocket. That feeling of opening the front of the shoulder on the right. So do that a few times. You're rolling the arm so the palm is facing up, connecting with that shoulder blade in the back so that there's this feeling of spreading, opening, expansion in the front of your chest. Good place to take a breath right into there. Now, see if we can connect that with the lower body. You're going to slide your foot in toward the midline, bending the knee into its open position, or what we call a frog leg as it opens out, feeling the shoulder on the right open, chest lifts. And see if you can feel that connection on the back side of your body. may take a few times to connect these dots. So just be patient with yourself. So I'll talk you through it again. The arm starts to roll, palm up. The chest begins to lift as the left knee bending out to the side, the foot coming in close to the midline. Perhaps you can feel your whole back arching, connecting the back of the right shoulder with the back of the left hip. Okay, beautiful. So now let's move to the other side. So this time, focusing your attention on your left shoulder, begin to roll the shoulder. Again, no bend in the elbow. We're just beginning to tighten the front of the chest, rolling the arm toward the thumb down position, helping your shoulder to lift, tightening consciously those chest muscles. For the brain and the body to actually feel what it's like to go into that startle reflex, that cringe reflex. This is very familiar to us. Let's put it together with the opposite hip, leg, foot. So as you roll the shoulder and lift it away from the floor, can you slide your foot out? Out meaning to the right, and the knee goes in as if it's folding towards your other leg so that the hip lifts. So we've got the right shoulder, right hip and left shoulder. That's the diagonal we're trying to play with here. The left shoulder is lifting. The right hip is lifting by bending the knee inward, sliding the foot outward. And you might be able to feel that sort of twisting contraction that happens all the way into the deeper abdominal muscles. That's the key area. So let's play now with the opposite, opposing. That's the flexion, that's the cringing. Now let's go into the opposing or the expansion phase of the movement. Start to roll your left arm palm up and see if you can help your chest to lift by tucking your shoulder blade down your back. It's a very pleasurable feeling to feel that open once you find it. So it doesn't stop at the arm, the palm starts to turn up, but then there's this, oh, how can I really get that shoulder blade to feel that it's sliding down my back a little so that I feel that expansion in the chest. And so once you've started to feel that you've got some sense of that, going to the right foot, begin to slide the foot in, the knee bending out into the frog position, feeling the belly rise up, the back arch. Finding this diagonal connection between left shoulder, right hip, through the back muscles. And complete the one that you're on. And adjust your body in any way you need to. If there's anything that needs to be shaken out, or if you need to do any particular movements to integrate that. It's a lot of new input here. And just become aware of what that feels like, sensing into your body's exploration of that. So please now roll over onto your left side, and you're welcome to use a pillow for your head to be supported. Lying on your left side, position yourself so that you're like a chair that's turned on its side, meaning that the knees are at about a right angle. Keeping your heels more or less under the crease of your knees. And have your elbows bent so that they're in the same position as your knees. So hands one on top of the other. Right angle bend in your elbows. Now we're going to start with this small, and it will move into a bigger movement. But if I were to ask you to just imagine and then let your body take you maybe 1/20th of the way there, so you can just feel the initial reflexive movement. If I were to ask you to begin to think of what it would be like to bring yourself into a fetal position without going there all the way yet. Just notice if you were to do 1/20th of that movement, if you were to want to curl yourself into a little ball, what would you start to feel contract in your body? So you might do it a couple times, just a small, like 1/20th of what the full movement would be. And just notice, do your knees move first? Does your abdominal muscles move first? Does your head come along with it? And once you've gotten a sense of that, go ahead and place your top hand, the one that's, so you're lying on your left side, so it's your, lying on your left side, so it's your right side hand, your right hand, place it somewhere on your head, wherever's comfortable. Maybe it's on the top of your head or just a little behind. And now I want you to think of going into a fetal position, but only the top half of your body. So it's just your right side. So the elbow and the knee curling into a little ball, as if you were bringing your elbow, knee, and head in toward the center of your body. And then come back. So we're going into the cringe, and then we're coming out of it. And that's a good place to take a breath. So the body feels, oh, that's what it feels like to begin to go into expanse when we take a breath and we open. So now this time, pull your head, elbow, and knee together, everything cringing forward. And now this time we're going to explore the lengthening, the expansion. So let your leg lengthen long, let your arm lengthen long, and begin to explore what it would be like to extend out from your center, like two rays of the sun reaching out. And then go back into the cringe again. So bringing your elbow and knee and head together on the top side. And then that beautiful elongation, lengthening the arm above, the leg below, finding your body's own invitation to go into that spaciousness. So this time, let's go one step further. And as we go into the cringe, it's what it feels like to feel the reflex of pulling in, of drawing in, of protection, of contraction. Very important reflex for survival. And then just feeling the expansion out of that as your arm goes long and your leg goes long. What would it feel like to roll almost halfway onto your back? So that feeling of the arm starting to open out and getting that spaciousness across the front of the body. And then go back into the cringe again, pulling in toward the center. Feeling, oh, this is my small self. This is what I feel like when I want to curl up. That picture I showed you of the little boy in the cardboard box. We all need that sometimes to just curl up and feel small. And then feeling tall, feeling your expanding self, the arm lengthening, perhaps rolling halfway or so onto your back, letting yourself feel how much space you can take up. And do it one more time, going into small. This time when you go into tall, let your arm open out behind you and your leg be still in front of you a bit. So there's this diagonal arm behind, leg in front. And now from here, keeping your arm and leg long, let your arm sweep forward and your leg sweep behind. So it means your arm has to cross over your head. And imagine as you're going into this sweeping motion, the arm sweeping behind, the leg sweeping in front. How much space could I actually take up on my mat as I'm doing this sweeping motion, bringing the energy in through the arm and the leg so that you feel that you could really be this bright star, like a star-like motion. Exploring how much space your body wants to move into. And for those of you who find it difficult for your shoulder, you can do this movement just the same way if you keep your elbow bent and you can place your hand behind your head. So if it's too challenging to have the arm extended out into space, just bend the elbow to protect your shoulder in any way. Okay, and now let the movement of your arm sweeping behind you roll yourself back over onto your back. It's great to see so many people moving with blankets. I can tell we're all in the colder time of the year. So we just had an experience on one side of the body of going small, becoming like a little ball, and then going big and becoming expanded. So just notice what that side feels like in comparison to the other side. Perhaps there is actually a feeling of one side being larger or longer or heavier, or even just energetically more expanded. So let's roll on to the other side. We're exploring giving the body, giving our psyche choice here so that we can choose to be protective, we can choose to be small, and we can also choose when we need to expand and become big. So starting with the hand placed on the head somewhere where you can just support the head, bring the top elbow and knee together as if you wanted to pull in towards your center and become very small, just on this top side. And you don't want to really yank on your head. The movement is coming from a curling of your spine. So if you imagine a cat, how it kind of rounds its spine, it pulls in the flexors of the body, cause the spine to round. So the more you can activate your spine rather than trying to pull your head forward, your neck will be much happier. So then, as you come out of this, just go to the initial kind of extension of your arm straight overhead, your legs straight down below. Feel the beginning of what it's like to expand out, just like all of nature is going through these rhythms of pulling in, contracting like a flower at night, it closes its petals, becomes tight, and then in the morning when the sun hits it, begins to open and expand out. So slowly, consciously making this dance of closing, becoming small, opening, becoming tall. And if you choose to, you can begin to expand a little more into that feeling of rolling halfway onto your back so that the arm starts to feel that it's capable of opening that chest. And then pulling into small again. And if you find at any point that the movement is in any way, oh, that doesn't feel so good, or it's not comfortable, what do I need to do? That's where the nuance of your own exploration begins to guide you. It's like, what do I need to do? Do I need to turn my head a certain way? Where does my head want to be? Do I need to do a little smaller movement? Am I safe here? So now the next time you go into small, you're contracting into your little ball, you're pulling everything in toward the center. As you go into expansion, the arm is going to open out, the leg is a little in front. in front of yourself. From there, we'll go into the sweeping motion of the arm going now, sweeping in front as the leg sweeps behind. So there's this counter twist or rotation, the pelvis and the torso. Protecting your shoulder in any way you need to. If you need to just bend your elbow, that's perfectly acceptable and workable. And still breathing, letting your breath guide the movement. And the next time you roll onto the arm goes behind, you can roll onto your back and let all of that settle in. I'd like to do one more thing here to integrate the two sides. So if you could now interlace your hands behind your head the non-habitual way. So whatever way you initially do that, just uninterlace your fingers and then re-interlace them with a different finger on top. And this time with your hands interlaced behind your head, start to pull your knees together, pull your elbows together. It's as if both sides were now coming fully into the fetal position. Your head going forward, your head and knees coming toward one another. Tight little small contracted ball. And then from there, you're going to expand out, both legs and arms, opening, expanding, breathing in to all that expansive, spacious, open center. Go back into your fetal position, curling forward, knees and elbows together. And then, like a star bursting open, expanding the arms out, the legs out. And then just resting there for a moment in that star, the star that is you, that shining star. So we started this exploration with letting go. And now we're going to take this opportunity to let in. The body is now open and available. I'm now available for letting in. And what do you want to let in this new year? Is it more freedom, more ease, more abundance? Letting in What quality of being would you like to let in? Just imagine all your cells opening, letting in nutrients, letting in new energy, new vitality. Letting in the new year. As you breathe in the word letting, and breathe out the word in. Just notice what wants to come in. What would be the nourishment, the nutrient, the quality of being that would carry you into this new year? And now you've let go. You've let in. Just take a moment to let yourself be. Letting be. And gradually you can begin to come back to the body, perhaps wiggling your fingers and toes and bringing yourself back to this space where we all are together energetically in the somatic space. And when you feel ready, you can transition, but I'm going to invite you to transition to a sitting up position in a way that is not habitual. So whatever way you would just normally maybe roll onto your side, see what it's like to choose the opposite side. So we're starting fresh. We're starting with novelty. We're starting with not just repeating what we always do and have always done, but what's the possibility when we allow ourselves to experience something new.